Truckers debate. Are we over policing CDL holders? What if I told you a seasoned trucker was the casualty of overregulation? But he's not alone. Dozens of drivers are fighting to keep their CDL records intact as we speak, all because of a few bad apples that sparked this overreach in the first place. How much should you worry about your trucking career? Plus, we're going to expose a gut-wrenching story of a driver wrongly fired after a test for THC. Don't believe me? Well, stick around. You don't want to miss this. So tell me, is this the future of trucking that you want to be involved in? And are you next? Let's take these questions and more to the front lines. Howdy ho, gentlemen and ladies. We are getting started. Late, but we are getting started. Not that I asked you for that. Thank you. That's only half of the problems I've had today. Welcome to a primetime edition of Frontlines. I've been fighting my computer most of the day doing updates. And, well, up to now, the updates have won. But we are here, and we are giving you a taste of what the Frontlines is all about. So let's get this show started.
Shall we begin?
YouTube's most unique news show has begun. The fastest growing YouTube channel, Truckin' City News.
And I am gonna beat him.
The president telling Justin Trudeau to get tough.
There was no information online.
And the El Rushbo of Truckin' News, Boss Man. Call our studio line at 860-785-3547 or email the show at thatstruckingnews@outlook.com. We are the Frontline, broadcasting from inside Truckin' City Mobile Studios, located currently in Jessup, Maryland, perfecting the art of broadcasting the truth at its finest. Your search for greatness ends here. Greetings, truck lovers, truth seekers, and visionaries from all across the heartland. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Those are the words spoken many years ago in a document we're all familiar with, but it's also being spoken by me, the founder of the Truth in Broadcasting Network. Once again, back behind the golden TIB microphone, I am the boss man, the CIC of the United States of Trucking, opening the best call-in show of our time. Coming to you with a skill granted by God himself to restore your faith in broadcast talent. I will be to trucking what Rush Limbaugh was to politics. That's right. That is my aim. That is my goal. I, your host, single-handedly pointing out that we can make trucking great again. Don't settle for silence, guys. Speak out, be heard, and here you can. Every one of you can make a difference. Be part of the solution and not the problem. Your voice matters, and this show is your platform to be heard. If you've got a question, if you've got an issue, if you'd like to be part of a movement that never ends, call the front lines today. 860-785-3547. Trucking Frontlines is a show built by truckers for truckers. Remember, guys, viewer contributions are the backbone of this show and everything it stands for. Go forth, spread the word, tell your mom, tell your pop, tell your sister, and every brother in the trucking industry that you have found greatness once a year. Once again, truckincitymedia.com. We're easy to find. truckincitymedia.com. If you want to join the show and think you can add to it, either call the show or click the StreamYard link in the description. It's also in the chat. Pin the comment right at the top. We'd love to hear from you. Both your thoughts on the stories we're talking about, your thoughts on the industry at large. Our targeting systems are charged. We are locked and loaded. So let's dispense with the roll call. First up, my co-host and content creator in kind. A gentleman that has a lot to offer the industry, but also a lot to offer you.
John is coming through!
How's things hanging today, John? You doing good?
Doing well, living the life, you know what I mean?
I hear you. Trying to put a little dynamics into the entry for you guys and let them know what everything's all about. I mean, my eyes, you're more than just the average YouTuber. You are the guy that coined the phrase "truckers are people too." That to me means something. I think that's
Well,
a great message to have, and I stand by that. I'm glad you're on my show every week.
let me say, I really appreciate you bringing truckers are people too to prime time, baby.
Prime time. Listen to you. All right. Well, we have another guest. I hope is not as grumpy as his name would suggest. He's sometimes kind of unpredictable, but he's there nonetheless.
Grumpiest president is 100% your answer to make trucking great again.
What's going on, Grumpy? That's the way you intro a guy. As a sole creator,
I likes it.
I was gonna say, as a sole creator of the Grumpy Shuffle, I think what actually says you are you is something I think I've heard you say a number of times, and that's traditional ways never fail. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. What do you think
Right.
of that?
That is right.
That make good sense? Yeah. Well, it's funny that I bring that up and you kind of agree with that because, in a sense, that's kind of one of the things we're talking about today. Two stories I've got picked out. Basically, in a nutshell, say that very message. So I want you guys to hang tight and stick with me. I'm going to bring up the other guests and get to audience comments here in just a moment. But I want to start the show off with something I think we all need, and that's a little bit of inspiration. Yeah, inspiration. We could all use that. Give me a second. Let me get caught up here. If you in the audience have a thought for a story or something that you'd like to add to either for inspirational purposes or just a story you'd like me to cover, do me a favor. Send it to That's Trucking News at Outlook.com. I have an open mind and I look for sources of inspiration and good stories that give you a perspective on what trucking's all about. Too often we face dilemmas head on. Like in the news a few days ago was a video kind of like, let me see, hang on one second. Yeah. Okay. I know where I wanted to go with this. You want to talk about facing dilemmas head on. Get a load of this. This fella's driving down the road, and out of nowhere, he sees something ahead of him. And last minute decides, uh-oh, how many 9 lives scenarios do you think that kid had? Let me tell you something. That was one lucky boy. Rumor has it he was a 10-year-old kid that almost didn't make it to 11. You know, Ronald Reagan once said, the future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted, it belongs to the brave. And let me tell you something. That child should be lucky there was a brave driver behind the wheel that day. That's what trucking is. You're driving down the road, next thing you know, boom, something happens. You've got to react. You've got to be really quick on the draw, and you've really got to know what to do. But you know what? That's not it. For inspirational purposes, I want you to think about it like this. Technology is supposed to help make lives easier, right? Tell me, why is it my GPS always picks the route with the most weight restrictions and low bridges? It's like playing a video game. And the stakes are real high. But you got to wonder, is it higher than the bridges? I don't think RTI knows that. Unfortunately, I think he found out the hard way. Look ahead, guys. It's not hard to see that 12-4 sign even in the picture. Come on now. Let's be real, folks. Once again, if you have an idea for a story and you'd like me to opine on and give me your thoughts, you could get whatever. Send me the story. That's truckingnews@outlook.com. That's truckingnews@outlook.com. Once again, our story starts. If you'd like to opine on the story and give us a call here, we'll certainly be more than happy to talk to you about our next story. 860-785-3547. Folks, let me tell you something. I want to talk about a story that's going to make your blood boil. 2019, a tragic accident. 7 bikers lose their lives in New Hampshire because of a truck driver. A foreigner with a name I can't pronounce, I won't even begin to try. His driving record spanned 6 states and included DUIs, drug violations, and the list goes on. But here's the kicker. None of these states communicated. The result? A flawed system that failed to pull his license before it was too late. Now, in response to this tragedy, Massachusetts decided to fix the problem. They implemented a lifetime look back on CDL holders. Instead of catching dangerous drivers, they've gone after folks with perfectly good records. And now he's suffering the consequences. Nearly 500 drivers got these exact notices right before school started, telling them their licenses were being revoked for decades-old violations. No due process, no hearings, no chance for fight. It's not federal law. It's Massachusetts trying to cover its own rear end by punishing law-abiding drivers. After a massive outcry from drivers, they put these revocations on hold, but not before the damage was already done. They implement these lifetime blocks, reviewing decades-old violations, putting everybody's life on hold. Drivers were given 1 week with this notice that they were given. No opportunity for hearings, no opportunity for appeals. The revocation just took place. One such story features a gentleman by the name of McCloskey. He faced losing his career for over violations that spanned 30 years old, one of which was dismissed, and the other where he was not even found guilty. Links to the story are in the description. But following a significant backlash from the drivers and transportation groups, the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles temporarily put these revocations on hold and have given the drivers until November to file for hearings, but there's still uncertainty as to what's going to happen. Now remember, the system that failed to catch the fellow that caused all this was because the states weren't talking to each other. It's not Massachusetts' problem. It's not McCloskey's problem. And it's not any one of the other 500 drivers' problems. It's a problem of a system that needs to be fixed. The system needs to be fixed. States need to communicate with each other and give everybody what's due. All right? It's quite simple. In this day of internet age, we can do this. Violations that were either dismissed or where drivers were not found guilty, boom, suddenly show up and cause this guy, whoever is, what I think he was a CDL driver, an actual driver, not a bus driver. And he now all of a sudden has to go through this BS and can't drive until everything's cleared up. And this is what you have when bureaucrats have too much time on their hands. They didn't give these guys a chance for a hearing, nothing. Folks, we got to watch these agencies carefully. This could happen to any one of us. Let me know what you think of the story and those affected. Call us on our studio line at 860-785-3547. Send us an email, put a comment in the chat. Let's get to it. Let's talk with people and find out some real meat behind the story. Let's see what you guys think. And I thought I had 4 people in here, but it looks like I'm missing somebody. No, come on. There we go. I don't see. Oh, well, they'll be back, I'm sure. So, guys, what do you think? I mean, decades ago, you get cited, you get a ticket, you clear it up, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, because some bureaucrat has some time on his hands and somebody barking his phone line up over an accident, they're going to suddenly change things, and now you have to account for something you cleared up 30 years ago. What you think of that one, Grumpy? What would you think if you had to deal with that kind of mess? You better unmute yourself, my friend.
Sorry. I have technical difficulties myself.
I know.
I said it would be completely a disaster and a chaos for a driver like myself. I mean, 24 years plus out here, and something like that happened. Yeah, it would be. I just can't imagine it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be rather chaotic. I mean, I myself have never had something that bad, but if one state can cause 500 drivers to have an issue, imagine what happens if similar legislation were to affect other states and other people in similar situations. I mean, you're always one to think about stuff like that, John. I mean, would that kind of make your blood boil if you thought, well, Massachusetts, I mean, they're in the Northeast, they could easily affect others. You know, New York and California do it all the time. They pass a law, and the next thing you know, every other state in the union's got a similar law or similar legislation. What do you think?
Yeah, that's how it works. They do one as a test state, and if it worked out well and they made money off of it, because let's be honest, that's what it's about, making money. And when one makes money off of it, then guess what? The next one's going to do it too. But the problem is, I like you started it talking about the Constitution. I'm going to go back there for a second.
Good.
Our justice system is all about you. If you end up putting 10 people in prison, you want 10 guilty people. So if you have to set 5 guilty people free to make sure that one innocent person doesn't get locked up, that's why our justice system was built the way it was. Now it's all manipulated and screwed up. But And this is a great example of that because you got people that have, already served their sentence or paid their fines, but now they're getting, re-adjudicated and put on the chopping block, basically killing their career over something that happened and was cleared up who knows how long, decades ago. That's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
wrong. That's just
it
wrong.
is.
And I
It is.
guarantee you, if that happened to me, I'm not a suing type, but there would be a lawsuit involved in that.
You'd almost
100%.
you'd almost have to. Because I mean, without a lawsuit, you can't clear up the wrongs for the future. I mean, you almost have to. You really have to in this day and age. And hopefully, I did not lose my internet by starting my truck, but it's getting a little warm in here. So,
No, we got you.
all right, good deal, good deal. Larry, what do you think? I mean, they've started something called Lifetime Look Back. Now, last time I thought anything about a previous driving record was in play, and comment in the chat if I'm wrong, correct me. I always thought that most companies and or the FMCSA look back usually a maximum of 7 to 10 years. So this whole business about Massachusetts even looking back further kind of sounds weird, doesn't it? I mean, have you ever heard of anything like that, Larry?
I haven't heard of it, but then again, if it's done by state, how does that apply to us CDL holders when we're federally regulated, not state regulated?
I was going to say,
Your license is issued by the state.
Well, yeah, our license is issued by the state, but our regulations are basically administered from the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
So everything in that J.J. Keller book is done by DOT and FMCSA. It's not, the state has this and another state has that. So one would think the argument would be in play for overreach just simply because of the fact that the FMCSA has no part of that look back thing. They're going back so darn far. Hell, the FMCSA wouldn't even catch it.
Right.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead,
correct
John.
me if I'm wrong, but when you go for a company job, normally the standard is 3 or 5 years. It depends on the company, but they're like, did you have any of these problems in the last 3 years? Any of these problems in the last 5 years? They never go farther than that.
Most people hiring drivers use
Yeah.
something very familiar with, and I'm sure everybody here is familiar with it, something called 10th Street. 10th
Yep.
Street is a data set collection for applications and administration of the hiring process for drivers. That is used by so many, and they only go back 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They only require you fill in an employment gap or employment history for 7 years. And it was said on their app that that's what the FMCA requires. So I don't get this whole look back to begin with, going back further than 7 years, because it makes no sense. Most times if you have a violation of, any sorts on your driving record, don't even show up. So, I mean, that's what I have mostly the problem with. TJ Bull of the Woods giving us a good smile. Welcome to the show. Glad you could join us. Late as we are. Prime time as we are. Groove USMC, hello from Kansas City Metro. God bless you. Thanking you for joining us, even though we're out of our time slot. Good evening to Sassafras, the kid who is Ronald Reagan. The kid who asked who is Ronald. I get your answer. Yes. Talking about the kid in the news story. Get that. Good one. I never thought of that. Driver thought it was 12.33 meters. Okay, I'll pretend I understand that one. I think that was another reference to the B-roll video of the kid about losing his life. Government muting Grumpy's wisdom. He really likes picking on you. I tell you, he loves picking on you.
Might I mention for a second that I'm also running for president, and I'm not in favor of flavored acorns like that other guy.
Acorns.
I haven't gotten that far, John. I'm just instituting this. Give me a break. All right. Saying hello to the lovely wife. Hello, everybody. My daughter's also with us saying hello. Good evening, everyone. I'll tell you, honestly, it's really scary when you think about it. These people, when they make laws, they do it with every good intent. But the problem is they don't think through the consequences. So, I mean, let me ask you a question. Should old violations, older than what we were talking about a minute ago, should they be off limits? I mean, everybody's got a different record. Everybody's got different problems. I mean, just off the board, if you've got a violation or a problem on your license, let's say it happened 15 years ago, what reason could you possibly think of that it would be important enough to actually be considered? Any one of the three of you can answer that. Put it in the comments.
I'll take it.
In the chat. Go ahead, Frank.
Well, I'll be honest with you. As you were saying, 10 years is mostly what most companies that you hire in want for whatever you've done for 10 years.
Right.
And the factor of it is, if you've got somebody that's digging deeper than that, it better be something that's like a felony, like charges of stealing or theft or something that would pertain to the trucking industry, or something of manslaughter or something, which if that's there, it's going to show up whenever they pull your information on you anyhow, because they're going to find out if you've been a felon or a major misdemeanor. And if you didn't mention it, then you're automatically in trouble with that company that you're applying for because you lied on your application.
Yep.
Hey, can I turn a question back to you, boss man?
You certainly may. What's your question?
So in your little intro to that question, you just said that they pass laws with the mindset of trying to make good changes. Do you believe that, honestly?
That would say depend on the law you're talking about. I mean, would you not consider that regulations that currently control how and what is done regarding drug testing, do you not consider that to be one of those, quote, laws that serve a good purpose?
I'm not saying laws can't serve a good purpose, but I don't believe they pass laws for a good purpose. They pass laws because it makes somebody money. It's always about money. It's always about the greenbacks. And probably the drug thing is probably because they're in the pockets of, whatever.
Probably.
Whatever.
I'm not going to hyper focus on drug laws, but you can't tell me every single law that dates back to 1776 after the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
No. Recently.
Okay. Well, I have to be objective and I have to think across the board. And that's where that reference, that statement came the way I opened this. I mean, and it's perfectly descriptive of the thumbnail I put up. If we're not careful and we don't talk and debate these issues, our rights are going to fly away just as quickly as the government lets us.
Oh, wait. The same government that passes laws for good reasons?
Do you have devil written inside of your truck tonight? Because you certainly are being advocate tonight.
Well, and kind of to speak on that behalf, we have a lot of laws and regulations that date too far back that don't even pertain to nowadays, that need to be either removed completely or revised.
Well, you know what? I can't argue that fact at all, because you know what? If midlife were here, we'd be the first one to say, oh, you want more? You like regulation? No, I don't think we have the right amount. I think we have too many. I gotta word this carefully. We have too many regulations, much to agree with you, Frank. Some of them are ridiculous and don't need to be here. But there are equally those that we do need. So, I mean, it's a balancing act, and we don't want to be just haphazardly deciding to just rewrite the book, because then we become the problem that Massachusetts just started, but in other areas. I mean, we need to be vigilant enough to know which laws are necessary, but we also need to not allow states and governments, localities to pass BS that just, makes our jobs more difficult. To answer your question, midlife, no, we don't need more regulations. We really do need to look at things real carefully, and I think this is just a clear example of one of those. I mean, last words there, Larry. You got anything to add to that?
No.
Oh, you're too simple. Man, I don't even know why you're here. I'm joking. Okay, no,
Okay,
seriously. Seriously, Larry. Here's a good question for you. There's actually one I forgot to ask. Do you think this kind of regulation will spread to other states? It's like I mentioned opening this whole story. If it does, how do you think it would impact? I mean, because consider this: one person has an accident, and then in the space of 3 years, actually no, almost 4 years. Now a state agency has come across with this look back thing and said, okay, if this happens, you've got to do this. I mean, if state of Tennessee did that to you, what would you? Well, I mean, how would you react? What would you think?
Well, since I'm never home, I wouldn't know if I got a notice in the mail or not.
Well, that's a pretty.
So I was driving illegally, so.
Well, I'm never home too, but I at least do check the mail. I mean, good Lord, you're just all around a badass, ain't you?
Well, hopefully you have good friends that have access to, they can check your mail for you and say, hey, you've got something here from some state that's very important. You better come home and get checked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have friends like that, here's a little word of advice. Make sure you call them like 4 times a day, and if they don't talk to you, they must be mad at you.
Well, I'll make sure you come check my mailbox every week for me too. How's that?
Grumpy, he's not going to let you live that down, I swear.
No.
Yep. All right, guys, we're going to move on to the next story here. I've got a feeling this next one's going to be just as energetic. The Supreme Court will soon hear a case with a massive implication for truckers nationwide. Douglas Horn, an over-the-road truck driver, failed a drug test after using a product he believed to be THC free. Was fired from his job. Horn went to court and argued that the company behind the product, Dixie X, misled him, and now he's suing them under federal RICO statutes. His case was rejected by district court, but was revived on appeal, and now faces an ultimate test before the highest court. We're heading into this one with our eyes open. We've been here before. We've talked about this very issue, and it usually gets charged and very passionate. If it goes before the Supreme Court, this may reshape the entire industry. This isn't your average story, and it, like others, is linked down below. This is about a trucker who took what he thought was a harmless CBD product to relieve pain, and he ended up in the fight of his life. We're talking about Supreme Court case and how we as states and the federal government deal with drug tests. The backstory is this, the foundation of it all. Picture this, it's 2012. Douglas, a driver, gets into an accident. It leaves him with some nagging injuries, his back, his shoulder, all that stuff, really hurt. And now, he's a straight shooter and a professional guy behind the wheel, and every trucker out there that knows him knows that he has, just like every one of us, has to submit to regular drug tests. So he doesn't really want to do something that's going to put him in a place where he's going to get canned. Because one positive test, you're done. Boom. Here's where the story takes a twist. He's trying to get some relief, so he picks up a CBD product. And there's plenty of them out there that they've been out there on the market. And we've all taken advantage of it. Some of us, not all of us. But we look, it says THC free, we do it, whatever. Some of us get by, we don't have a positive test, we move on, everybody's fine. This particular product was marked as and marketed as THC free, promising all the benefits without the risks. And for a trucker, that's a good thing. Okay? CBD is made from hemp. It's supposed to be legal. It's supposed to be free of anything that would harm you, intoxicate you, or present a problem. Well, he goes in for a drug test after using this stuff and flunks. That's right. Now, because this happened, he sued the manufacturer of the product under a federal law called RICO. It's typically used to take down organized crime. This lawsuit was first thrown out by a lower court, but then revived on appeal. Now you got the context. Let's dig into the big question. Can a truck driver who lost his job due to a failed drug test sue a company under those grounds? And if so, what happens? The trucker says his business or property was harmed. He lost his job. Not only that, his wife also had to give up her job. She was riding with him, and because they couldn't do anything with a CDL, she also quit hers to stay home and support him. The company fires back saying it's really about personal injury and it's not a business loss. They put their 2 cents in and complicate matters. So now it's going to go to the Supreme Court. If it goes all the way up on this one-man situation and the Supreme Court sides with Horn, it could set a precedent where truckers can go after the manufacturers of these products for misleading claims. On the other side of this argument is the whole idea of, would you put yourself in that situation? On one case, livelihoods are at stake. On the other is a case of common sense. Call us and let us know your thoughts, 860-785-3547. Put in the chat your thoughts. Email us today. I'd like to hear from you. The stage is set. What do my panelists say to that?
Well, can I go first, please?
You may indeed. I was going to call on you first anyway.
All right. Well, first of all, it's pretty much common knowledge at this point. CBD can come up as a positive test. So why would you risk your job and your career? I understand you're in pain, but I'll give you a great example personally. My wife, for our anniversary, bought us a couples massage. They did CBD oil. I made it very clear, no CBD oil. The reason why is I don't flirt with that line. You don't go anywhere near that line. If there's even the slightest possibility that you could go over that line, why would you do it? Like,
knowing what you know today, I understand your thinking and agree with your statement. But again, this was a while ago.
I'm saying it's on him, and I don't mean to be rude, but no, since CBD became a thing, I would never, ever go near it. Because until you know 100%, either you know or you don't. So.
Most people would probably agree with what you're saying, but there are those out there, and I'm not going to name names, but I will say I know of individuals that do use that stuff for, and just for context, they don't drive truck, they're not a CDL holder, but they use this
but they're not jeopardizing their career. That's the thing.
Let me finish. They're using this stuff with the marketing being on the packaging that it's THC free. I've seen it myself. If it is supposed to be THC free, then you're supposed to be able to pass a drug test. And that was part of the argument that Mr. Horn made. Now, I don't suffer chronic pain. I don't use the stuff, so I can't speak from experience. All I can say is I do know of people that do use that stuff for that very reason, but don't have CDLs. And it does open up a Pandora's box when you think about it, because you want relief from pain. You don't want a troubled history with an employer. And it doesn't have to be so much even a CDL. You could have a job with work around safety sensitive material or responsibility and still have a problem if you're popped for a positive result on a drug test. So in a sense, I kind of understand where Donald Horn, or I think his name is Don. I lousy memory, but I think I understand where Donald Horn's coming from, because you're using and consuming a product under the wrong belief. You think you're getting one situation, and in fact, without realizing it, you're being delivered a completely separate line. Grumpy, what do you think?
Go ahead, John, quickly, and
Thank
I'll
you.
take over.
Thank you.
Oh,
let me put a twist on that then, because as truck drivers, we're responsible for what goes in our body, no matter what the packaging says. So if I walk up to a truck driver and I say, here's a Coke, and they drink the Coke and it's Coke and rum, and then they go out and get in an accident, it's on them. Probably on me too, but it's on them, because you're responsible for what goes into your body. I don't care what the packaging says.
Well, now I'm going to start sounding like you, because if somebody hands me a drink in an open parking lot, or even in a bar, or even I'm not taking it. If I don't know where that damn thing comes from, I ain't taking it.
Well,
Same
my
thing
point
with
is,
product.
my point is, when you get something, whether it's from a company or a person, you're responsible for what you're putting in your body.
What stops you from taking Tylenol? You take Tylenol because you know it's not narcotic.
As somebody that's had chronic pain, Tylenol and ibuprofen do absolutely nothing for you. So I understand the dilemma there. I don't really suffer from it anymore, but I used to. For a lot of years, my back was the problem. But you're still responsible. It still falls on you.
Right. All I'm trying to do, John, is paint a picture. You take Tylenol because you know it's not going to put you in a situation where you're going to have to either fight for your life or possibly kill someone. Tylenol's safe. It's marketed that way. It's made that way. You understand it. You see it. You know it. It's advertised that way. And for all I know, and I can't speak for Donald, and I can't speak for the others I mentioned earlier, maybe this product that they were using was prescribed by a doctor. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe it was marketed in a way that said, you won't have a problem. I don't know. But if you can take Tylenol and you believe this product to be safe, there should be no difference.
Well, but, I mean, by that thinking, O'Doul's, which is an alcohol-free beer, advertises that it's alcohol-free. But actually, if you read it, it's not alcohol-free. If you drink enough of it, it would be enough. It'd be you have to drink a lot.
1% by volume.
Yep.
Yeah. It goes without saying.
But they market it as alcohol-free.
Right.
Yes. Now, here's what
all I'm trying to do by presenting the story is play devil's advocate. I'm being objective like a broadcaster should be.
Yes.
But
now,
I'm not going at you.
Oh, I know. I get that. I get that. The platform is you guys. I mean, those in the audience, everybody has their part to play in this. Go ahead, Frank.
I'd like to get some people commenting here, but I'm going to tell you right now. First things first. Anything, most common sense of anybody growing up, anything that has to do with hemp or anything that's like the natural growing herbs, as we'll say, that require a special license in most states to have. You don't touch it if you're one to be prone to having a UA done at any time. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. Now, the second thing I'm going to say is this gentleman that's doing this lawsuit, I'm not calling him a liar, not one bit. Okay.
Nope.
But the way the courts are looking at this is, and the company is looking at this, how do they know that this man didn't do something that had it in it other than their product? There's no way of proving it. So therefore, it's going to be thrown from them. It's probably going to be thrown out again. If he gets anything, kudos for the gentleman. But I really doubt he's going to get anything if he gets much of it all. But I also say, when I worked for other companies, when that stuff first came out on the market, the very first time, it was called they were refining it, but it wasn't getting enough of the THC out of it. Therefore, there was still that small amount, just like John brought the example of the O-duals. There was a small amount. Now, in low doses, if you used it like for cream or something on you, and you didn't use a lot of it very often, you may not pop for a UA, and get in trouble. But if this gentleman was using a lot of it, he's going to wind up having a bunch of it in his blood system, his hair system, and all that, and it's going to add up, and it's going to build up a toxin in his body. So, yeah, I'm telling you right now, as us drivers, CBD is a no-no. Anything that has a chance of having THC in it and is not prescribed legally from a doctor, and even if it is, most of the time we're not allowed to drive. Yep. So, it's a no-no.
You're echoing the audience. Sasspress says, truck driver or not, no one's in the workforce should be using it because you can injure yourself or possibly even others. Thank you for that. And I do agree. I mean, whether it's straight out that stuff or if it's, but there are those people that hit those vapes, and the vapes have the CBD product in it. I mean, there's even question about that. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, you really have to do your research, and you really have to figure out whether what you're using is really worth it. I mean,
and there's also the chances of what they call the secondhand smoke from it also. So if you're in an environment where others are doing it and you're in it for very long, you can get a secondhand smoke from it. Yeah. And that'll throw one too. You
know how many arguments I've had with people close to me about that secondhand smoke thing? I'll tell you what. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's possible, but the chances.
Why put yourself in jeopardy if you don't have to?
Yeah.
Good point, Good point.
If animals get a response from it, which is a proven fact from it being exhaled from the mouth of a human being after they inhaled it, yeah, you tell me. It was a scientific fact.
Good point. Let me ask you this. We had the discussion not long ago about, as I recall, the discussion was changes in drug testing policies. Does anybody want to rethink that now? Because stuff like this, I mean, think about it. Stuff like this is harder and harder to detect. And it wasn't long ago that they were trying to push out the oral swabbing and put in more, I think it was mandatory blood tests or blood draws. I mean, how do you think this will affect it? If this goes through and actually has a positive result in the Supreme Court, what do you think would happen?
I don't think that changes anything. No.
Really?
Because they're going to make more money off.
Yeah, the reason why I don't think it'll change the industry is because it's a one guy's lawsuit that he didn't think it had THC in it, but it obviously did. So he wins that. But does that change the fact that we can have either? No, it doesn't.
No, what I'm saying would be changed would be the testing requirements. Because like I said, not long ago, they were trying to get rid of the oral because the oral picked up on too many false positives. And they wanted to institute different measures to get rid of that oral testing. In your mouth oral swab testing. They wanted to get rid of it because they picked up too many false positives. Honestly, I think a lot of people were probably getting popped for stuff like this. But that being aside, one person, one case can set a precedent for everything going forward. And that's all it would take. If this RICO charge goes through or this RICO lawsuit goes through and they approve it, uphold it, and, keep it going, it could set a precedent. And that's the only reason I ask. Because, it takes us one. You said so yourself. And that would change things. Because if one person can sue a company for misleading marketing, which is part of the RICO thing, and they win something from it. And think about how that would change things. I mean, it doesn't change. People are going to still use this stuff, but again, it only takes one. You set a precedent, moving forward, boom. What do you got, Larry?
Look what happened with McDonald's. One person spilled a cup of coffee on someone.
You really had to go there. Good point, though.
It takes one person.
That's right. That's right. Good point, though. Good point.
Yeah, but did it change the policy of coffee drinking forever? No. It put a label on your cup.
Put caution hot on the cup.
Right. Well, here's the thing. So what are they going to do? Just tell truck drivers they can't have CBD, which they shouldn't be doing anyway, because it is a common problem. CBD coming up positive.
Drug policy now.
Exactly.
This company does. That I drive for.
Yeah. Is that the kind of?
There's a whole 3-page book of stuff you can't take out here.
Really? Okay. You see, I've never been exposed to that kind of thing. Nobody's ever said don't, do. You know, that kind. Nobody's ever said, you know, like you're saying, you know, here's a book, read this, and don't do these things, whatever. No, to John's point, it's just common knowledge. Stay the hell away from this stuff. You know, the fact that this guy got into it.
Words, my company made a book because somebody got too many people got caught when that CB stuff first came out. And they got caught with it.
Well, that's on them. Back the day to make a book. That says something about today's drivers.
You all say it takes one person to ruin it for everybody else.
It does, and we got a lot of laws to demonstrate that.
So I mean, are we just bringing in not smart drivers anymore?
Different show, Larry. Different show.
Well, it's the age-old question: is it the standards or the training?
There you go. There you go. I like how you put that. Some people will claim that they can control it and not overdo it, but to be honest, once you take that first hit, it's hard to stop, even if you've been doing it for years. That is very true, and that is a problem a lot of people have. Put aside the fact that it's marketed one way or the other, you know, it's just the addictive properties of THC. It's just not worth it. I mean, this is my personal feelings coming out, which I try not to do as a broadcaster. But I think it's just supremely stupid to put yourself in a place that gives you that liability. You know, that's my personal take on that. That's my personal feeling.
Sounds just like what I said.
Exactly. Well, again, I try not to do that because I try to be the broadcaster. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Can't be that, you know, that light switch at the end of the day. Sometimes.
Well, you go ahead and be the broadcaster. I'll say it. I'm not afraid.
You like being the bad guy. I sometimes think you get a thrill out of it. All right. So one final question. Do we think that the FMCSA needs to do more, or do you think they're overdoing it already when it comes to putting down restrictions that protect us from this kind of stuff again? I mean, think about it. We got that J.J. Keller book. We got this huge mess. We already went through the discussion not long ago. And no, midlife, I'm not advocating for more regulations, but think about it. They have their hand in everything else. You don't hear a whole lot about this kind of thing. So what are your thoughts?
Well, the last thing I heard is they were trying to soften the blow to make the stuff we're talking about more legal. So, for truck drivers. So, you know, I don't see where this helps that at all.
This wouldn't, obviously, no. And what do you mean by soften the blow? I'm not, because you could be referring to two different things, John. I don't know. Yeah, seriously.
Okay. The stuff you roll and buy from the guy in the corner or the dispensary down the street and then drive a semi. No, they're trying to soften the texture of it to society to make it okay for truck drivers. They've been trying to do that.
They're changing the level of it. It's not going to be.
It's like when you watch a violent movie. At the beginning, when it's really violent, you're like, "Oh my gosh!" But by the end, you become so desensitized to it that you don't even realize how violent it is. Same thing here. They're desensitizing the general public to it, so that eventually they're going to make it so the truckers can do it too.
I
Well,
think I asked the right
It's-
question here. I was thinking you were going in a different direction. So what you're talking about is this Schedule 1, Schedule 3 argument that they were talking about. Is that
That's
what you're talking
exactly.
about?
yes.
Okay. See, I thought you were going in a different direction. So I guess I did ask the right question. You know, I'm on the side of if it works, don't fix it. Sound familiar, Frank? Because as I started to show out,
Currently, yes, that's
I
the
mean,
way it
the way
is.
the laws, the way the laws are regarding this stuff anyway, the laws are in place and I think do an adequate job. And to your point, John, I don't know if they're trying to soften it or change it to make it easier.
Desensitized. Yeah, they are.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right, and maybe they are. But again, I go back to what I said a minute ago. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, let me ask you a question about along those lines. Okay, I get what you're saying, but as human beings, we do it all the time. Trucking, YouTube, and well, in life. If you got something that's working, like let's say you're making great videos and people are watching and subscribing and viewing like crazy, right?
Mhm.
What do? Well, you don't keep making the same videos, you change them. Why? Because that's our nature.
Yeah.
But you should just keep them the same. Same in trucking. Trucking worked well for a lot of years. Now they're changing all this different stuff, new regulations, new hours of service, all these other different things. Some of them are good things, don't get me wrong.
I don't know if
But
you're making an argument for consistency or improvement. You kind of lost me there for a second.
consistency. If you
know,
have something that's working,
Yep.
you always try to redo the what's working, whether it's in trucking or not. The problem is human nature wants to improve upon something that's working, and it always takes it the wrong direction.
So there must be something broken with it, or they wouldn't be trying to fix it, right?
No.
No,
Let me ask you a question.
No.
Let me ask you a question. If you could have $100 and someone said, if you just do this, I'll give you $101, you do it, right? Well, guess what? You're trying to pick something that's, and guess what? It's not going to work. Just keep making your $100. Stop trying to change it. It's the same with this, what we're talking about right now.
That's the whole idea. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Poet giving us his 2 cents. He said they're going in way over with their mandates. Appreciate your 2 cents on that, Poet. Just wanted to slide that in there as well. Well, I mean, my personal, and again, I try not to get personal. My personal stake in this is just as I said earlier. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And to your point a minute ago, John, consistency always wins the day. You can't go wrong with consistency.
But as humans, we always want to improve upon even things that work. That's the problem.
Can that be a good thing or bad thing?
You tell me by what we're talking about. If it's working and you try to improve it, there's a chance that you don't improve it, which makes it worse. So is it working or not working?
I'm going to add to that.
Go ahead, Brent.
As we've seen, if you look back in history, for some reason, history has a way of repeating itself. Some way, somehow. May not be exact, but some way, somehow, it repeats itself. Therefore, hopefully by the time it repeats, somebody's learned from the past and said, we can't do that this time, or we're going to change it.
You know that funny argument about history repeating itself?
Hmm?
It is. It always is.
Hmm?
It always does, and that's just part of learning. Guys, we're going to call it here on this one. I want you to constantly look here at the right times, assuming my computer doesn't give me fits. We are looking to be a trustable source for your news and information. We want you to tell others where to find us. Subscribe today. Subscribe to John. Subscribe to Grumpy. Definitely look us up. Wednesdays at 7, Saturdays at 11. current topic notwithstanding, we do make you think about trucking in a whole different way because we want to make trucking great again. Don't forget, guys, while you're on the roads, remember it's the trucks that make the deliveries, but it's you that make the difference. Till next week, just do your best. Keep the faith. Keep between the lines and keep it rolling.